It was a night of spectacle in Washington, D.C. On the south lawn of the White House, cameras clicked like thunder as President Donald Trump waved to crowds, floodlights painting the marble walls in brilliance. Behind the smiles, though, the Capitol pulsed with unease. The president's security had been tightened after intercepted chatter hinted at a strike inside the heart of America. Hours later, as the president's motorcade glided past the Lincoln Memorial, a shadow streaked across the marble columns overhead. Not a drone, not a bird, a man in red and blue. Spider-Man. In Queens, trouble usually meant small robberies, collapsing buildings, the occasional masked villain. But after uncovering encrypted FBI transmissions warning of a credible threat to the U.S. president, Peter Parker had made a decision. Sometimes the friendly neighborhood part stretched further than Queens. As Trump's convoy turned toward Pennsylvania Avenue, rifles clicked from rooftops. The threat wasn't rumor. It was here. Without hesitation, Spider-Man leapt from the dome of the Jefferson Memorial, his webs slicing through the night. The first shots cracked a coordinated ambush. Secret Service agents raised shields, shouting, "Get down, Mr. President," as the convoy screeched to a halt. Muzzle flashes ignited on rooftops. Amid the chaos, Spider-Man swung into action. "Surprise cameo," he quipped, yanking two gun barrels toward each other with twin weds. Another flip. He fired silk that tore rifles straight from hands, scattering them across the sidewalk. From inside the armored limo, President Trump's silhouette was visible. Agents barked, "Eagle is secure." But Spider-Man's dropping into the street, Spider-Man landed on the limo's hood, speaking directly through the bulletproof glass. "Mr. President, if you're listening, tonight's about more than bullets. Someone wants Washington to fall." Inside, Trump raised an eyebrow, voice muffled but firm. "Get it done, Spider-Man." Beneath the city, hidden under Pennsylvania Avenue, explosive charges blinked silently. In the underground service lines, a voice hissed across radios from the shadows. Phase 2 begins. Target, the White House itself. But only Spider-Man's heightened senses caught the faint hum below his boots. His head jerked down, realization chilling him. This isn't just an ambush. They're going to blow the city's heart from below. For once, it wasn't just New York. This was America itself. And the president was at ground zero. The city exploded into alarms. Sirens wailed across Pennsylvania Avenue. The Secret Service pushed closer around the armored limo. But Spider-Man stayed crouched low, one hand pressed to the asphalt. His spider sense burned like an electric hum pulsing through his bones. Something beneath them ticked, sharp and mechanical. "They're not just targeting you, up top." He shouted to the nearest agents. "Someone wired the ground. If we don't move now, the whole block's toast." One agent, hard-jawed, glasses cracked from a stray bullet, snapped into his comm. "Confirm. Push Eagle out." But Trump's voice rang firm from the vehicle. "Stand your ground. Get me information. Who's behind it?" The agents exchanged desperate glances. This was what everyone knew about him. Stubborn, commanding, unwilling to retreat in a moment that looked like weakness. Spider-Man slammed his palm to the limo window. "Look, Mr. President, with respect, you won't have a country to lead if you turn this block into a crater. You want information? Let me hunt it down before they detonate." Seconds ticked. Then, a faint nod. The kind of reluctant agreement only a commander could give under fire. "Go," Trump mouthed through the glass. Spider-Man fired webs to the nearby service grate, yanking it free with a grunt. The stench of oil and dust rose up. The tunnels beneath Washington stretched like veins, meant to carry cables, lights, and water. But tonight, someone had turned them into a battlefield. He dropped into the black, his lenses adjusted, glowing faint white. The tunnels echoed with faint metallic beeping, the sound of remote charges lined like teeth along the walls. And then, voices. Through the shadows, shapes moved, masked figures in tactical armor, working hurriedly. Strings of wires looped in their hands. One spoke in a clipped accent. "Once the charges run, goodbye, President, goodbye, Capitol." Spider-Man's chest tightened, his wets twitched, prepared to fire. When he felt another vibration behind him, he flipped just in time. The tunnel ceiling burst open. Secret Service tactical agents dropped through, rifles aimed outward, securing position. And then, another shock. Among them, lowering carefully on a rope, was President Trump himself, flanked by two elite guards. His red tie was tucked under a bulletproof vest, his expression steel. "Let's see who wants to bury us," he said evenly. Spider-Man blinked. "Wait, you came down here? You're supposed to be halfway to Maryland by now." Trump's jaw set with resolve. "You protect roofs and walls. I protect a nation. Sometimes the commander-in-chief doesn't hide." For a split second, Spider-Man marveled. He wasn't dealing with a frightened statesman. He was dealing with a leader who had chosen to walk directly into danger. The terrorists realized too late. Red and blue blur struck first. Spider-Man whipped webs into the detonator packs, yanking them skyward before they could arm. Panicked gunfire sparked across the tunnels. Secret Service agents spread into positions, returning shots with surgical precision. Spider-Man landed hard, slamming one masked saboteur against a wall, silk binding his arms. Another swung a rifle, but Trump's nearest guard fired two precise shots, disarming the man instantly. The clang of gunfire echoed like thunder in the tunnels. One leader snarled, lifting a remote trigger high. "For the world to see, your capital will burn." But before he could press it, Trump himself stepped forward. "You think you scare us? America doesn't cave to cowards." Spider-Man sprang, webs snapping the trigger from the man's palm before it could click. He landed crouched at the president's side, chest heaving. "Guess speeches don't stop bombs." "But that worked," Peter muttered. Trump straightened his jacket, eyes steely. "Words and actions, both matter." As the last saboteur was restrained, one agent tore off a mask. Spider-Man's eyes widened behind his lenses. These weren't random mercenaries. Their helmets bore the insignia of a rogue private military firm, long rumored to fund chaos in exchange for influence. One of the bound attackers spat bitterly. "You fools. Do you think catching us ends the plan? This is phase 1. Higher powers pull phase 2, even inside your government. A chill slid between the group. Inside his mask, Peter frowned. In Queens, corruption was usually landlords and mob bosses. But here, in the capital's arteries, it was darker, more blurred between power and betrayal. Trump's gaze narrowed. So it's an inside job. Spider-Man straightened. Meaning this doesn't stop with you, Mr. President. It's bigger. You've been marked, and maybe your whole seat of power, too. The president looked directly at him. Then you stay close, because if this is war, we fight it together. The bound mercenaries' words echoed in the tunnel. Phase 2, inside your government. Everyone froze for a beat. The FBI comm channels were already buzzing with conflicting orders, static on secure lines. It was as if someone was deliberately jamming air communication from inside. Spider-Man's spider sense prickled in abrupt jolts, not from the mercenaries still groaning on the floor, from something further, deeper. High above, the Capitol dome glimmered faint gold under floodlights, the ceremonial halls preparing for the president's next meeting at dawn. Spider-Man pivoted sharply toward Trump. They're not trying to collapse the street. They're branding this city with fear. Phase 2 isn't underground. It's the Capitol. Trump nodded once, resolute. Then that's where we're going. Minutes later, black SUVs screeched into place outside the Capitol. Secret Service cordons snapped into place, agents flooding into corridors. But Spider-Man didn't wait. He launched himself up past marble columns, scaling the dome in seconds. Beneath his gloved hands, his spider sense throbbed like distant thunder. Inside, halls echoed with historical paintings, but overlaid with the scratch of boots where no guards should have been. Armed infiltrators disguised in maintenance uniforms were planting silent canisters along structural joints. Not bombs, but devices humming with pulse tech, capable of unleashing electromagnetic shockwaves. One hissed to another. At 0600, Capitol screens go live. The whole world sees Washington crippled. Spider-Man's webs whipped out, yanking the canister straight from their hands. Yeah, about that live stream. You picked the wrong time slot. Chaos erupted. Weapons raised. Gunfire cracked into pillars. Spider-Man dodged, twisting through the historic hallways, binding weapons, dragging intruders upward into the rafters. And then, footsteps boomed behind him. President Trump, flanked by his lead guard, stormed to "You dare walk into these halls of history to tear down what belongs to the American people. Not tonight." Even infiltrators faltered at the sheer authority of the voice. Spider-Man swung downward, slamming one infiltrator to the marble floor. Another pulled the detonator, but webs plastered it instantly against the ceiling. Still, more came. A secondary strike team bursting through side entrances. Trump was escorted back behind armored shields, but his command never faltered. Hold your lines. Protect these halls. This is our house. Spider-Man's mind raced. Too many enemies, too many devices. His spider sense flared like lightning. a master device thrumming at the very heart of the dome above. If triggered, the electromagnetic pulse would fry every system in Washington in seconds. Transportation, security grids, hospitals, gone. He scrambled up the dome's inner scaffolding, heart racing. His webs snaked outward, grabbing one device, then another. But one remained, attached to the central beam, armed, timer already blinking red, 048. Beneath, infiltrators shouted, firing wildly at his silhouette. Webs whistled, snapping magazines free, binding rifles. But time thudded loud in his ears. Trump's voice below cut across the din. "Spider-Man, you know this city can't fall. Not while we stand." Peter gritted his teeth inside the mask. "No pressure, huh, Mr. President?" Seconds drained. He fired twin webs, ripping open the machine's casing. Wires snarled. His heart thrashed. He thought of Aunt May, of Ben, of every soul counting on moments heroes rarely had time to process. End. His hand quivered. Which wire? His spider sense buzzed sharp. Instinct, not logic. He yanked the yellow feed. Stop. Paused. Then blank. Silence. The devices smoked uselessly. Captured infiltrators snarled as Secret Service cuffed them. The echoes of battle dissolved, leaving only the rising hum of dawn pressing through stained glass windows. Spider-Man slumped against the steel support, exhausted. Down on the marble floor, President Trump raised his voice once more, not to Spider-Man, but to his agents and guards. Tonight, they thought fear could tear down our foundation, but as long as men and women stand together, as long as heroes, even masked ones, choose courage, this republic stands stronger. Spider-Man dropped down beside him, whispering low, "You're a tough crowd, but nice speech." Trump smirked faintly. It wasn't for the cameras. It was for the people who needed to know we don't break. Spider-Man straightened, his mask hiding a small grin. "Guess that makes two of us." Later, as the sun crested over the Capitol steps, Spider-Man perched alone on the dome, watching Washington stir. He reflected quietly. Back in Queens, I saved grocery clerks, bus drivers, neighbors. Tonight, I saved a piece of America bigger than me. Heroes don't choose where to stand, they just stand. Even when history watches. And far below, the president rode away in his armored car. He did not wave to cameras. He did not brag to the crowd. But he knew, and Spider-Man knew. Together, they had kept something greater from shattering. True heroism isn't about politics, fame, or power. It's about standing in the darkest hour, choosing courage when fear tries to rule, and protecting those who may never even know your name. Spider-Man didn't save the president. He saved millions who would wake up, pour coffee, and walk into a city that still stood. And that's the essence. A hero is anyone who refuses to let the world burn when standing up could stop it. So, when you feel your choices don't matter, think about Spider-Man. Think about one man beneath a mask, risking everything against darkness for strangers he'd never meet. Heroism is not reserved for superheroes. It's reserved for anyone brave enough to choose it.